How can we know that the Torah, that is the books of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, are not the work of God, that God is not involved in this? For a simple reason, because this book contains mistakes and insights that people in ancient times believed, but which were later disproven. Now, if the assumption is that God knows everything, he shouldn't make mistakes. He should know the world, its structure, how rain falls, where the sun is, and where the moon is. He shouldn't write things that fit the ancient worldview in the field of astronomy or in any scientific field. But the field of astronomy is fascinating, because in this area, it's well known what people in the ancient world thought. They were always preoccupied with the sun, the stars, the movement of the stars and the moon. And this subject really, really fascinates me. So much so that I have a kind of passion for astronomy. And let's see how the author of the Torah, what he actually understood, how the structure is built. So he starts like this in the book of Genesis, where he basically understood that there is water in the world. And God created, and God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it separate between water and water." In other words, there is some kind of firmament that is physical, and then the water, there is a separation between the upper waters and the lower waters. And after he created the water, this separation, he asked that the waters be gathered and collected to the oceans, essentially, with dry land appearing in the middle and oceans surrounding it. That's what is written. And God said, "Let the waters under the heavens be gathered together." And afterwards, after he created the sun, the moon, and the stars, it is written that, "And the lesser light and the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night and the stars." And God placed them in the firmament of the heaven. Meaning that God placed the stars, the sun, and the moon in the firmament he created, which is essentially situated around the horizon above us. Now, this concept is a rather naive and simple one, and even legitimate, because even we, if we look up at the sky, see the sun, the moon, and the stars appearing to move across the sky above us. Here, in the course, I took on the philosophy of rationalism and empiricism is the philosophy of the modern era. They actually start exactly from this, from astronomy, from the Copernican revolution that changed the worldview, simply changed the worldview. And they explain here that there is the naive perception of man. What is our intuitive perception? That there is some kind of dome above, a vault, that's how we feel. And the earth is relatively flat, at least that's how we intuitively feel. And that the stars, the sun, and the moon revolve in their orbits around us. That's also how it's understood from the biblical text. And how did they understand how rain actually falls? With the religion of a vault, so how does rain fall from the sky according to this belief? So it's written explicitly in the texts, describing in detail how God, in his wisdom and power, brought down rain from above, providing water for the earth and all living things. So it says in Genesis chapter 7, verse 10, "On that day all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened." That means that God opened windows in the heavens. He made some kind of hole. Even the translator Onkelos translates the word arubot as window. He translates it as, in other words, kevi. Kevi means window in Aramaic. Okay, Arabot Hashamayim, Chave Deshmaya, Tehom Rabba, Chave Deshmaya was open. That's how Onkelos translates it. And Chave is window in Aramaic. So it's as if God opened windows in the sky, and then this is actually what happened in the story of the flood. And also in the book of Malachi, chapter 3, verse 10, it says, "Test me now in this, says the Lord of hosts, if I will not open for you the windows of heaven. This means that I will bring you rain, and I will pour out for you a blessing until there is no more need. I will give you plenty of rain, and then there will be a great harvest, and that is a blessing without end. Likewise, in the book of Kings 2, chapter 7, verse 2, it says, "Behold, the Lord makes windows in the sky. He makes holes and openings in the heavens." Could such a thing be? It's like, wow, it's a wonder. There is only a solid barrier, and then, when he wants, he can simply open windows in the sky. And also in the Talmud, in fact, in the Talmud, in Tractate Berakot, page 59, which was still before the Copernican revolution in the 16th century, pay attention to what they say at the time when, in Tractate Berakot, on page 59a, I will now read to you from the text. When the Holy One, blessed be He, desired to bring the flood upon the world, He placed 2 stars from the constellation Kima and brought the flood upon the world. In other words, there is a firmament. We said that he placed stars there, and there are all kinds of names for stars, and here they refer to the star cluster called Kima. And for God to bring the flood, he took 2 stars, and then what happened? Oops, there's a hole in the firmament, and then the flood comes. When he wanted to bring the flood upon the world, he took 2 stars from Kima, and he brought the flood upon the world. But how did he actually stop the flood? After all, there are holes in the firmament and there are upper waters, so it would keep dripping all the time. So how did he seal those windows? When he wanted to seal it, he took 2 stars from Ish, which is another group of stars called Ish, and then he sealed it. So he took stars from another place and carefully sealed the hole. And here they go on debating, but I won't bring you the nonsense they ask. Like, why didn't he return the stars? Why didn't he create new stars? It doesn't matter. They're just splitting hairs. Anyone who follows my videos already understands the pointless debates and the shallowness of thought in Chazal. In this video, I just want to focus on the matter of astronomy. Now, for anyone who wants to delve deeper into the comparison between ancient astronomical knowledge, including the religious perspective, and modern astronomy, I really recommend listening to the videos by Professor Zvi Mazet. He is an astrophysicist, and he is also a religious person, liberal religious admittedly, but still religious nonetheless, who has, in addition to his other achievements, also won the highly prestigious Israel Prize in Physics. He has truly amazing and engaging videos because he knows exactly how to make this complex and often difficult subject very accessible, clear and understandable to a wide audience, and he really presents in a very effective way the differences between the perspective written in either in the Bible or in the Talmud and the perspective of the Copernican scientific revolution. He really does this thoughtfully, with good taste and intelligence, and I highly recommend simply searching on YouTube for Professor Zvi Mazet. The breakthrough into modern astronomy or religion and science. He has a video on religion and science, modern cosmology versus Genesis. In the beginning, God created the world. And it's very enlightening and pleasant. And what's also important to mention, and Professor Zvi also points this out, is that this was the worldview, and it's the worldview we would have held as well if we had lived in that era, because it's the naive perspective. That's what you see, that's what an ordinary person sees and understands, with all the immense wonder of it. And I will now conclude this video presentation with the thoughtful and insightful words of this course, which is titled Rationalism and Empiricism, specifically in relation to the topics of Aristotelian physics and astronomy. Because again, all the medieval biblical commentators tried to interpret the entire book of Genesis, the whole story of the creation of the world, according to the views of the Middle Ages, essentially according to Aristotelian perspectives. And so they ended up spilling ink in vain, including adopting the 4 elements, which is also Aristotle's worldview, a worldview that ultimately turned out to be mistaken and was proven wrong. And I want to read this to you But before that, I want to show you how Baruch Spinoza related to the commentators, who in fact did not interpret the Bible according to what the Bible actually says, but instead inserted their own worldviews, including scientific ones, into the Bible, even though the Bible itself does not say these things. So how does Baruch Spinoza criticize Maimonides? Because Maimonides used to do this. So he says Maimonides and others are simply babbling, because all they sought was to squeeze Aristotelian ideas and their own fantasies out of the scriptures. And to me, nothing is more ridiculous than this. So that means that when you read the commentators, or even today, modern rabbis also try somehow to align what's written with modern science. There's nothing more ridiculous than that. Truly, there's nothing more ridiculous than that. And we simply need to, and this is also the magic, and in my opinion something amazing, to read and know from the Bible itself and understand how they saw the world, and not to insert what we understand today into the text when it's not written there. So let's see how they understood the world. As we know from this course in the Open University on modern philosophy, Aristotelian physics applies to the Earth. The physics applies to the Earth. But Aristotelian astronomy applies to the entire universe above the moon, meaning all the celestial bodies, the moon, the sun, the fixed stars, and the planet. All of these are made from a substance called ether, which remains unchanged and is neither destroyed nor corrupted. The celestial bodies move around the stationary Earth. In other words, the Earth stands still, according to Aristotle, and the stars thank you. They move in an eternal and unchanging circular motion. In fact, according to Aristotle, it is not the stars themselves that move, but rather they are actually suspended within the firmament, as it is written in the Torah here, and God placed the sun, the moon, and the stars within the firmament. It's like, imagine some kind of umbrella with all sorts of glittering stars on it. And so these are actually the stars, and what rotates is the umbrella, not the stars themselves, because the stars are fixed within the umbrella or within this firmament, as if he placed the sun, the moon, and the stars inside the firmament. And the celestial bodies are actually embedded within the firmament, as if they were lanterns in a clear and transparent ceiling. Basically, what they're saying here is that this is the naive perception, that is what a reasonable and logical person can sense about how the world exists. And this is also reflected in the Bible, as I explained. And what's important is to be fascinated by what is written, by what people once understood. It really is wonderful, and as a history teacher, I'm truly fascinated to know how people once understood and perceived the world. But to come and say that God wrote this, that is to demean God, because God would not compose such a book. Not a confused book with errors, with incorrect astronomy, with duplications, with contradictions, with confusion of times and of the story itself. And that's what's important. It's important to know that the book is fascinating in order to understand our history, but it is not relevant. It is meaningless, and humans wrote it in different periods. But it is still money.